Once upon a time, at the base of a gentle green hill, there stood an old wooden barn. It was home to a bustling community of mice who thrived on the abundance of grains and seeds stored within its weathered walls. The village was always lively, filled with the chatter of young mice playing and the sound of older mice bustling about, gathering food and preparing for the changing seasons. Among the many mice that lived in this barn, there was one named Rufy. He was known throughout the village, not for his diligence or strength, but rather for his unique talent for procrastination. While other mice were busy with their tasks, Rufy was often found lounging in the shadows or spinning tales that made his fellow mice laugh. He had a knack for telling the funniest stories, always with a twinkle in his eye and a mischievous grin on his face. Despite his charming personality, Rufy's habit of putting things off was well known. Whenever someone needed help with a task, Rufy was quick to promise his assistance, only to find an excuse later. Tito, one of the eldest and most respected mice in the village, was often the one who tried to involve Rufy in the village's work. Tito had a soft spot for the young mouse, always hoping that Rufy would one day change. One crisp autumn afternoon, Tito was preparing to collect a large batch of corn from the far corner of the barn. "Rufy, I could really use a hand," he called out, his voice weary from years of hard work. Rufy, lounging comfortably on a pile of hay, flashed his signature smile. "Of course, Tito. You know I'd never let you down. But, I just remembered I need to finish something really quick. How about I join you tomorrow morning bright and early?" Tito, already used to Rufy's excuses, sighed and nodded. "All right, Rufy. Tomorrow then," he said, though he knew deep down that tomorrow would likely never come. "Hello, everyone. Check if you're already subscribed to the channel and if not, go ahead and subscribe and leave a like." The highlight of every year was the Harvest Festival. It was the biggest celebration in the village, marking the end of the harvest season and the start of preparations for winter. This festival was not just a time for feasting, it was also a time for all the mice to come together in a spirit of unity. Weeks before the festival, the entire village would buzz with activity. Mice of all ages would be assigned tasks, gathering food, decorating the barn, or planning games for the younger mice. This year, however, the village elders decided that they wanted to make the festival even grander than before. Tito, as the unofficial leader of the village, called a meeting in the barn's central hall. The room was packed with mice chattering excitedly about what their roles would be. When it came time for Rufy to choose his responsibility, he surprised everyone. "I'll take care of the music," Rufy announced with enthusiasm. "Leave it to me. This year we'll have the best music the village has ever heard." The mice cheered, clapping their tiny paws together. They were hopeful that maybe, just maybe, this time Rufy would follow through. However, old habits die hard. As the festival day approached, Rufy spent his days lounging around the barn, spinning tales for the young mice or napping in the warm afternoon sun. Whenever Tito or one of the other mice asked about the music, Rufy would brush them off with a confident grin. "Relax, it's all under control. I've already booked the band," he would say, even though he hadn't even thought about contacting the musicians. But as the festival drew nearer, the other mice began to worry. Tito, now desperate, approached Rufy one last time, only to hear the same tired excuses. "Everything's set, Tito. Trust me, you'll love it," Rufy said, though he hadn't taken a single step toward arranging the music. Finally, the day of the Harvest Festival arrived. The barn was beautifully decorated with colorful leaves, dried flowers, and strings of twinkling lights. The aroma of freshly baked pies and roasted seeds filled the air, and the mice gathered in their best attire, ready to celebrate. As the sun set and the sky turned a deep shade of orange, it was time for the music to begin. All eyes turned to Rufy, who stood nervously on the small wooden stage. He had no band, no instruments, nothing prepared. Sweating profusely, Rufy tried to stall. Folks, there's been a small issue," he stammered. "But don't worry. Let's, sing together instead." The mice were silent, their excitement turning to disappointment. Tito, standing at the front of the crowd, shook his head. "Rufy, we all worked so hard to make this night special. You've let us down again." For the first time, Rufy truly saw the hurt in their eyes. It wasn't just a party that he had ruined, it was the trust of his friends. He left the stage with his head hung low, retreating to the darkest corner of the barn. That night, Rufy couldn't sleep. He sat alone in the barn's attic, thinking about all the times he had let down his friends. He remembered how many chances they had given him, how many times they had believed his empty promises. For the first time in his life, Rufy felt ashamed, not just for failing to organize the music, but for every broken promise he had ever made. As the first light of dawn began to break, Rufy made a decision. He would change. He got up, brushed the dust off his fur, and made his way to Tito's house. "Tito, I'm sorry. I know I've let you and everyone else down. But I want to prove that I can change. Let me help with the cleanup today." Tito looked into Rufy's eyes and saw something different, a sincerity that hadn't been there before. "All right, Rufy. Words are cheap, but actions speak louder. Show us." And so Rufy did. He spent the entire day cleaning, organizing, and helping wherever he could. He swept the barn floors, repaired broken beams, and even climbed up the rafters to replace the lights. Day after day, he was the first to wake up and the last to go to bed. The other mice, initially skeptical, began to notice his efforts. Weeks turned into months, and Rufy continued to show his dedication. Whenever a task needed to be done, Rufy was there, working hard and refusing to cut corners. He took on responsibilities he had never considered before, helping the elderly mice carry their grain, teaching the younger mice how to build sturdy nests, and even organizing small gatherings to bring joy to the village. One day, Tito approached Rufy as he was helping fix a leak in the barn roof. "You've come a long way, Rufy," Tito said with a smile. "You've proven to us all that you can be trusted." Rufy beamed with pride. For the first time, he felt like he truly belonged in the village, not because of his charm or his stories, but because of his actions. The following year, when the harvest festival came around again, the mice were hesitant to ask Rufy to take on a major role. But Rufy surprised them by volunteering. "Let me handle the music again," he said. "This time I promise not to let you down." True to his word, Rufy spent weeks preparing. He contacted the best musicians from neighboring villages, rehearsed with them, and even learned how to play a small drum. When the night of the festival arrived, the music was perfect. The mice danced, laughed, and celebrated late into the night. As the festival drew to a close, Tito raised a toast to Rufy. "Here's to change, dedication, and the power of actions over words." True to his word, Rufy spent weeks preparing. He contacted the best musicians from neighboring villages, rehearsed with them, and even learned how to play a small drum. When the night of the festival arrived, the music was perfect. The mice danced, laughed, and celebrated late into the night. As the festival drew to a close, Tito raised a toast to Rufy. "Here's to change, dedication, and the power of actions over words." Upon realizing the impact of his empty promises, Rufy decides to change and earn back everyone's trust, proving that actions speak louder than words. This story teaches us the value of responsibility and shows that true trust is built through actions, not excuses. The moral of the story: Rufy's journey taught him and everyone else in the village a valuable lesson. it's never too late to change. True growth comes not from words but from actions. And trust, once lost, can always be rebuilt with dedication, perseverance, and genuine effort.